Well, good morning and welcome back to another rainy day podcast. I really need to get my summer adventures in, but it's raining again, and I'm really hoping this summer is not going to be like last summer where it rained every few days. And so far, it's this spring into summer is really turning out to be that way. So, if my voice sounds a little bit different and I stop every so often and cut recording because I am coughing. The reason being is the pollen right now is very high. Everything is covered in green, yellow. It's just that time of year. A lot of the trees are finalizing their blooming of the flowers and into leaves, and grasses are coming out and all that stuff. Plus, not only that, over Memorial Day weekend, I had a cookout, and at the end of the cookout, we roasted marshmallows and I lit my fire pit. Some of the wood that I was using was really wet and created a lot of smoke, so I probably inhaled a lot of smoke, and right now my lungs kind of feel like I smoked 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes and I don't even smoke. So, on that note, that just explains why you might see a lot of cuts in the recording of this video, because I am editing out where I had to stop and cough, sneeze, or whatever between the pollen and everything. But there are a couple things I do want to talk about in this podcast, and actually one major one. There is one little short topic I'll discuss, and then we'll get into our main topic of today's podcast, which is the use of music in the videos that I post and other people are posting. Before we get into that, let's get into this kind of short little discussion. As you know, I've been posting a lot of fill-in videos lately and haven't really done too many adventures, and I mentioned before, because of the weather. So a lot of my videos have been focusing on slowing down and forced slowdowns. And I do want to address something. This shirt is not stained. It's the reflection of the lighting. It's a little bit weird, but anyway. So I have been posting videos on slowing down and such, and how I was forced to slow down with events that happened with my back. Truthfully, I'm still trying to do that. I am loving the more simple life, not worrying so much and stressing over things. I'm also still downsizing, getting rid of things, trying to organize things. That's one of the things that's been going on. The other thing is, I kind of reconnected with somebody that I had went to high school with some 30-something years ago. Now, it's kind of interesting because him and I really did not hang out much during high school. We were of like two separate crowds. Yeah, we talked and all that, but, we didn't really like hang out because, how high school can be. He was more of a city person, and the technical high school that I went to had a lot of city people in it. There was only maybe 4 of us or so for the first couple years from the town that I lived in and grew up in. I kind of reconnected with him, and a lot of you know that, yes, I am a Christian. I am licensed in the ministry, although this channel does not focus on that. That's not the intent of this channel. But I have reconnected with him, and I've been attending a men's church group during the week, and I started going back to church because I hadn't really found a church since I moved back to the New England area, unlike when I was living down south. So that's kind of like where also things have been going. Schedule's picking up a little bit because of that, but yet I'm still simplifying. So that's just kind of like a small topic that I wanted to discuss. That yes, I am still trying to downsize, simplify, and yet I'm also changing a few things in my life, but that is not going to affect this channel. So let's get into our main topic for today, and that is I want to discuss the music that I use in my videos, and also probably the music that other YouTubers use, but I won't discuss the reasoning behind their music because I really don't. I know a lot of it has to do with storytelling, but I'm just going to bring this from my own perspective and why I choose the music that I do for my videos, because there has been a couple comments in the past about why I chose a certain music, and they really did not like the song that I chose. Now, music is subjective, we all have our preferences. I've also had comments in the past and more recently that the videos probably would have been better without music. And yes, it's true, I am using music less and less in some of the videos that I post, unless I really need to fill a slot where music would just be better for, like, when I show a surrounding scene that does not have many nature sounds in it, and also if it enhances the storyline more. So let's get into the choice of music. First has to do, if you've been around the YouTube channel at all, Facebook, Instagram, you know, or if you don't know, I'm going to just go ahead and state it briefly, that you cannot use music that is played on mainstream radio and also streaming through like Spotify and all that because of copyright. I don't know how TikTok is getting away with what they do with the mainstream music, although a lot of those videos that they post are 1 minute or less, so it could fall under fair use, which is kind of very vague topic. But at one time TikTok had came out and said that they actually have the rights to all that music to be able to use it. I have not been able to find anything that documents either way on what they're doing, so I cannot speak of it. But when you get into fair use, the fair use doctrine is kind of vague. You know, it says you can use so many minutes for commentary, news reporting, and all these others. However, when it comes to music, that is really open to interpretation by the record companies. And I had some instances on an old channel that I used to run where music was being flagged. Now, these are the old days before YouTube would really issue any copyright strikes. They would either let you know that there is an issue, and all that revenue that I would have made, even though I wasn't monetized, and the reason why they were putting ads is because all that was going to go to the record company and the owner of that music. Also, YouTube used to, and they still do, mute some music, especially in certain countries, because the use of music varies country to country once you get out of the United States. And now YouTube also offers, not offers, but will have copyright strikes, where if a record company has really come down and said, no, this is a copyright violation, and if you get 3 copyright strikes, your channel is automatically deleted on YouTube. That's just the way their policies are nowadays. So the whole use of fair use is kind of vague and interpreted because, like I said, I had an old channel where I did have a couple songs that I had posted, like maybe a 30-second clips, and the record company had said, nope. And that had gotten muted, and YouTube notified me of it. So, got to be really careful with using fair use. The other thing is, when it comes to licensing, this is where things start getting a little tricky and vague. Right now, there are some licensing companies, like Artlist is the one that I use, because the licensing structure for them, now I know they did open up some more less expensive tiers, that if you want to use music like strictly YouTube or other things, that it would be less expensive. But when I originally subscribed, and the tier that I'm still subscribed to, allows the use of their music to be used on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or any commercial work that I do. Like if I was to do weddings or a brand deal with, like, let's say Nike or some big brand company, and I did a commercial for them, they have a whole music for that. So I cannot speak to Soundstripe, Epidemic Sounds, or all the other ones. about how their licensing actually works. I can only speak from experience of using Artlist and also Facebook Music. Now, let me address Facebook Music first because this is going to actually tie into the first thing I want to talk about with music licensing, which could probably happen with all these other music subscriptions that you pay for. Facebook acquired a company called Music.ly, or it's actually the website was music.ly. Very mainstream music on the level that you would actually hear on the radio. All genres between rock, metal, hip hop, country, inspirational, Christian, indie, and like a few others. Very mainstream sounding. Actually, I love the music from them. And what happened was I ended up posting a video strictly to Facebook only. These were the very early days when Facebook was still trying to get their watch page and videos all up and running, and nobody really know if the watch page was really going to take off. It took a while before they actually put the actual little tab on their website or whatever. So I uploaded it to my page. 3 years later, the video received a copyright and was deleted from my Facebook page. What had happened was, for whatever reason, the artist or Facebook were no longer in agreement, and that song had been pulled out of their music library. So I wasn't paying for that service, and it was a video I really didn't care. It was really nothing like I was trying to promote my page or my YouTube channel. Actually, it was Facebook, so it wasn't something that I was really trying to promote my page or anything like that. But here's the thing also with the paid ones that I really question the future. And I know with Artlist, and I will speak to only them because that's the one I'm subscribed to and I use. I never looked into the terms of service of Epidemic Sound, Soundstripe, and there's like 4 or 5 other ones that have come about now that you can actually license music through. But I know with Artlist, if you cancel your paid subscription, their terms of service state that once you download that music, for whatever works you created up until your cancellation, you still have the rights to publish those works, for those works to be used. So if I have a video out on YouTube, or let's say some time in the future I do some brand deal with like GSI Outdoors, Nike, or whatever, and I just keep mentioning Nike because they're a popular brand. Not that I would ever get a brand deal with them, but so that commercial could still be in use. However, at the point that my contract, either they chose not to renew it or I chose to no longer subscribe, I cannot derive any new works with that song. All old work can still be viewed, can still be protected from copyright and all that, but I just cannot develop any new work. Here's something that I kind of question with that, and this is something that happened in a church that I belong to. Back probably about 10 or 15 years ago, maybe more, there was a licensing agency called CCLI, Contemporary Christian Licensing Institute, I think is the actual full name. But basically what it was it was a place that your church or religious organization or Christian organization could pay a licensing fee to use the songs and artists that were listed in their database. And each song had a CCLI number which indicated you could use that. So any of the works that you have done, even if you had a worship band playing on stage and you put the lyrics up on the screen, you still had to have in the corner the name of the song, the artist, and the CCLI number. Now, your cost for that licensing agreement varied depending on the size of the church and how many songs that you actually download or use. So here's a scenario that happened that make me kind of wonder in the future about this whole music licensing stuff and why I'm kind of getting away from it. Although where I use music to enhance a story or something, I might still use it. So I'm kind of leery about it in the future. But right now, Artlist, their terms of service state that I can still use it, and that's the contract that I'm going to go by unless they notify me and say they're changing their terms of service. So what happened with CCLI was I was on a worship team. Now, I cannot sing. I do not have a voice. You don't want me to sing. I cannot play a musical instrument to save my life. God knows I've tried learning a number of them, just don't have that musical talent. But I was on the worship team where I did the media work, where I, put into the software the lyrics up on the screen, created music videos to use, added music to slideshows of different events like baptisms and children's church and, different things that went on. So we were starting a YouTube channel and a website. And I had put those out on the YouTube channel and the website, which we could legally do under the terms of CCLI at the time. I had gotten a notice, not me personally, but I was the administrator. I was the only one who knew how to do this stuff technically within the church. So I was running it for them. So basically the church got the notice, but it came through my email because I was the administrator. The notice had come through that there was a copyright issue with one of the songs that was used. So this was again before the whole YouTube strike thing. So I notified YouTube and I said, look, for the time being, I'm going to put this as unlisted. So it's not publicly available. It's not private where nobody can view it, but it's not going to be publicly available. Only people that we send links to will be able to view this. And the reason being is we have a CCLI license to this. And so there should be absolutely no question about the use of it. So YouTube agreed, and this is before the time of all the AI and now only being able to talk to bots and all that, when you could actually get a hold at somebody at YouTube through email and responding to an email that they sent you way in the beginning. So we put the video as unlisted. I contacted CCLI and I was like, okay, I've got an issue. This is what happened. We have a license and I need to know how to address it. It took a couple days, but CCLI responded and said, okay, for whatever reason, an artist or a record label could actually withdraw from CCLI. Now, contemporary Christian music is the popular music that they play on Christian radio stations like K-Love and like a few local ones. So they could withdraw at any time, either the record company saying we're withdrawing from it, or the artist saying we're withdrawing from it, or a CCLI finding out something and being like, okay, your music is not on here anymore. Now, that means that work is no longer covered under CCLI. And according to the terms of agreement, it also meant that if you had used any of that music or that song or that artist, you had to destroy any copies of the song lyrics in your possession, any copies of the music arrangement in your possession, any copies of cassettes, practice cassettes or whatever you had, or CDs. CDs were starting to come around, in your possession. You had to also destroy any videos you had made. So I questioned CCLI and I was like, you're telling me that if for whatever reason your contract with the artist or record company is broken, if I used a song in a video that I made of a church event like a baptism, a children's church or whatever, you're telling me I have to destroy those tapes, those videotapes or video CDs, and I can never put them on the church website. I can never put them on the church YouTube channel. I had to take them down from the church website YouTube channel. I could never show them in the privacy of a church or a small group ever again. And they said under the terms, their licensing terms, yes, that's true. So basically, you would end up losing a church record of like a baptism or whatever. So I went back to the church that I belong to and I said, look, show them the email, and I said, here's the response. The worship pastor at the time, he got very irate and he said that better not be the case, and threw a couple of words in there that I won't repeat, and said, because we just paid CCLI $10,000 to renew our licensing contract. Now, I don't know how long the licensing contract actually covered for, because I was not on the administrative end of it. So I don't know how many years that covered for, but basically I knew from dealing with CCLI, it was based on the size of the church and how much music we were using. So I don't know, truthfully, whatever came of all that. All I know is that I took it down off the website, I took it down off YouTube, and just kind of left it as that. And I was getting ready to leave that church anyway because I was moving out of the area. That leads to, whether or not something's going to happen in the future with like Soundstripe or Epidemic Sounds or Artlist or anything, as any of these indie artists may decide to go mainstream. So that's the question. So the next part of this I want to address is the type of music I use in my videos, because of the comments that came up about why I didn't use music from a certain type of genre, why I chose the song that I used. Some people just didn't like the song, which, like I said, is all subjective. Your music taste, is what you listen to. Or they said that my videos would be better off without music. Let's kind of address this. When you're picking music to use for a YouTube video. Now, I know on my channel, I like my channel to be a kind of positive place. You will come to my channel and you will not see anything or hear any music that is any type of vulgarity, promoting certain things, or anything that's political in nature to an extent, or anything that's demeaning. I want this to be a positive place. So it gets kind of hard in a way to pick songs, especially if I'm trying to find something that goes along with the video. I know a lot of YouTubers that would just put a song in just to kind of fill that space. Me, I try to match the song that I'm using to that video to enhance the storyline or go along with what I'm trying to show you. So some of the time I will even choose songs that do not have lyrics. It would just be music. So this brings up the first music. I was a teenager in a time where heavy metal music was very popular and rock music was very popular, which kind of, with the exception of a few bands, have left the mainstream. So I, in the past, and especially my old YouTube channel, have used heavy metal music. Nowadays, I still have a couple of videos out there that have heavy metal music in it, not lyrics, just the music. Those videos were used because I could really find nothing else to use that were show the force or go along with the force of a destruction of a tornado when I was doing disaster relief and I was showing the damage in an area, or a hurricane that came through and really flooded a river and created these rapids and torrents of otherwise a river that was totally calm and serene. That was kind of like the only time that I really used heavy metal music. And I know rock and heavy metal no longer is the mainstream. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of YouTubers had said, you need to stop using heavy metal music. A lot of YouTubers don't use it because of that, because, pop or top 40 is the mainstream music, or at least it was. So that's why I really shy away from heavy metal music these days. And truthfully, with the exception of like 1980s hair ballads, I really don't listen to much metal anymore. I'm getting too old for that thrashing style metal. Okay, so hip hop or rap music. Like I said, with my channel being a place that I want it to be inspirational. I want it to be uplifting in that. Hip hop from like 1990 back used to have a better message and was not so controversial. And I'm talking about the whole 1980s time when we had breakdancing and the music breaking and breaking to Electric Boogaloo, and we had bands like and artists like Run DMC, Grandmaster Melly Mel, Grandmaster Flash, a few others. I'm really dating myself now. You had songs, the band Nucleus with the song Jam On It, song Basketball, because a lot of inner city people were playing basketball, stuff like that. Since that time, hip hop and rap music has pretty much taken over. Unfortunately, hip hop music went through a period where there was a genre called gangster rap that came out that glorified gang activity, murder, drug use, promoted drug use, drug selling, the whole getting rich at whatever cost, and the wearing of the gold chains and all that. Also involved to showing women and as sex objects and very sexual explicit nature and dress and all that. So using hip hop is really hard, especially on these music licensing channels, because if I go out and I'm just scrolling through all the new music, probably a good 80% of them. Now, I don't know how other places like Epidemic Sounds or Soundstripe and all them flag their music, but I know on Artlist, if it has a microphone symbol, that means there are vocal or lyrics or singing that goes with it. If it has a little E, that means it does have explicit content, whether that be swearing, sexual nature, drugs, or whatever by that artist. And with the freedom of music and free speech, it's really hard to censor that. So 80% of that music is flagged with that. And I know on YouTube, Facebook, it can easily be reported, and even YouTube can, with their scrubbing to make sure you're not doing something you shouldn't in your videos, that would go against their community guidelines. That, anything swearing, sexual nature, unless it's actually put out by that artist and that music video and that record company, is a big no-no. So that's the whole reason why I don't use hip-hop and rap, because number one, my channel is about the outdoors, so it's a lot of country, rural living, rural lifestyle, getting out into nature. So hip hop and rap doesn't really fit that, but yeah, there's a lot of explicit stuff, so it's hard to use that. Which is why I gravitate more towards, inspirational music, trying to find something that's more uplifting. Country music, some indie rock, and some things like that. But like I said, more and more I'm kind of getting, unless it really enhances the storyline, I'm kind of getting back away from using music that has song lyrics in it and just using music in itself. A lot of people ask, why I don't use classical music. The reason behind that is there are only really certain instances where classical music actually fits a particular video or something you're discussing. Also, the other thing to discuss about music licensing, something again that happened with the church. I had made a music video for a worship band that got gotten flagged. So here's the scenario behind that, and I really don't know how to address it other than the fact that we were told, because it was actually either BMG or UMG, one of the two biggest record companies that actually holds licenses and buys licenses and gobbles up licenses from the estates of artists that have deceased, and they buy out little record companies, so they change their terms of service. So here's something that happened again when it comes to music. There is a thing called public domain, which means these are songs that were either written or sung back before copyright really came about. I'd have to look up the exact date. I think it was 1970s when they really started enforcing it, but even earlier. So this is going back to music from like the 1800s, which is a lot of your church hymnals and some of your folk songs and stuff along that genre, heritage music from like the 1800s and such. Again, here's an instance that happened with one of the things I had done for the church. There was a song that they used that was public domain from the 1800s. If I remember the exact song, I'd have to go back and find it, and I could actually prove to you that this was public domain. The lyrics and the musical composition was from the 1800s. Over time, many different people have used this song. So we had used a version of it by some obscure artist. Now, the thing also with copyright, it says if an artist has been dead or deceased for 70 or more years, their music is, now again, this all comes to the interpretation of the record companies, their music is now public domain and you can use it. There was a song from the 1800s that was public domain. The version we had used was from a artist from the 1930s or 40s. And the church worship band kind of like changed it up a little bit to their own arrangement to make it a little bit more modern to fit the style of music and the style of worship they were doing in that church. The lyrics were the same. The bass composition was the same. It's just they've, added like a few different drums and electric guitars type of arrangements and stuff like that. So we had made a video based on that. And again, we put it on YouTube. A copyright notification came up, and the record company had ordered to take down the video. There was like no muting of it, no everything. It just came through that the record company said, this is copyright violation, take down the video. So again, this is like the early days when you could actually get a hold of somebody at YouTube through an email and you weren't chatting with bots until, it kind of went further. So I contacted YouTube and I was like, okay, here's the situation. Song is public domain. The arrangement is public domain. It's from the 1800s. The lyrics is public domain from the 1800s. Several other people had recorded this. We used a version from a person or artist that has been deceased for more than 70 years, and we actually changed it up a little bit, so that is no longer copyright. YouTube submitted this all to the record company, and I believe it was UMG, one of the biggest ones. They came back and they said, no, this is a clear violation, and here's why. Apparently, Dolly Parton and an artist by the name of Antonio Fernando, I believe it was Antonio Fernando, did a duet. But anyways, it involved Dolly Parton's, so big, well-known artist. They did a cover of this song, same lyrics and everything. And the record company had put a copyright on that, meaning that since they recently covered this public domain song, that nobody could now use it because a popular artist was using that and made a cover of that song. So this got really hairy, and there was a bunch of back and forth, and it's like, now, what's to stop somebody from using a public domain song? How can somebody, a new artist or a very well-known artist or a record company, claim copyright on a song that is being used that is from a public domain. Unfortunately, the record company would not back down. So, again, this is why music has become very leery when you want to start publishing stuff that contains music. And I don't know if going forward, because I don't publish reels on Instagram or Facebook, I don't publish videos directly to Facebook. I will share them from my YouTube channel. I don't know if in the future I really want to maintain the cost of using a subscription service just because of what's happened in the past with CCLI, what's happened in the past with using public domain music. Do I really just want to go back to using YouTube's music studio and the music from there and just letting them sort it out? Even though YouTube has added music recently that sounds a little more mainstream, but a lot of what's still in that library are basically music that somebody had a MIDI keyboard and it's not really mainstream sounding. So I don't know if I just want to go back and use that because I really like the music that are on these subscription companies and these licensing companies to enhance the story. So that's kind of like the whole, I know this is starting to get long-winded, but that's kind of like the whole thing when it comes to music as to why it's hard to choose whether or not to put music in your video, what songs to use, and where you get your sources from. There's a lot going on in the music industry these days. There's a whole bunch of things coming out about the contemporary Christian music scene. There's mainstream artists that are promoting certain things that is not uplifting or stuff that you really want your kids listening to these days, or even I want to listen to these days. So in all, the music industry since the year 2000 has really changed. Unless you start listening to like indie music, and I don't mean Indian music from like the country India, I mean indie music as in independent artists that are putting out music on like the Epidemic Sounds, sometimes they're on Spotify, Artlist. They're just trying to get their music out there and known, and they're promoting themselves independently. You may never see them coming around in concert. They may do small local venues, stuff like that. With mainstream music as a whole has really changed, and it's really become difficult when it comes to how, when, and the type of music to use. If anybody wants to criticize the choice of music, I will say be nice about it. Don't use vulgarities or anything like that, because I will not tolerate that. If it's not your taste, just mute that section that have the music in. I'm just trying to use it to either enhance the story I'm telling, or to just kind of fill a slot where the sound that I recorded is not appropriate for YouTube, or there was just no sound and I needed something. And this also includes if I'm out filming something in public and a restaurant, park, or whatever is playing music in the background that I have no control over. And I do have a Christmas video from Gibsonville Lighting Up the Lights where I specified in the beginning of the video that this is a repost because I had to change the music because the town and the dance company had used music that caused a copyright issue. I did not want to totally take down that music, and I felt really bad for these kids that had worked so hard with their arrangement that I said, okay, this is the closest match that I could find. So some of their dance may not exactly match the music, but this is like the closest I could find that still goes along to their little routine that they were doing. So yes, if you're filming out in public and there's a band playing at the local bar or restaurant, and this also happened in Raleigh, North Carolina, where the music industry had went into these restaurants and started fining them at $10,000 a piece because somebody had their radio on in the kitchen where they were working, and that could be heard out in the restaurant area or even not heard out in the restaurant area. Somebody had the radio on, so they determined that to be a public performance and use because it was not just that one person, it was like 5 or 6 people in that kitchen working who were listening to that radio. They also find restaurants and such because if they had music on an outdoor patio and you were kind of next door or out on the street and you could hear that music, that turned out to be a public performance of that music, even though that was either a radio station that they were just playing through the speakers, or it was being piped in corporately, or they had put in a CD that they had bought themselves. So it gets down to a whole messy situation. So for those of you who are filming out in public like I do myself, luckily 90% of the time I'm in the woods or on the lake, so I don't have to worry about that. But when I'm visiting like certain cities or I'm touring a public area or something like that, I really have to be careful about what's playing in the background and what I edit out. And sometimes it could be I don't want to lose the footage, so I have to choose music to put in that space to kind of mask the music that I muted because of copyright issue or potential copyright issue. So, like for example, if I was in a city and or a local town and I was showing the area, or I was in a park and I was showing the area and somebody had music going, but I did not want to lose that footage, I would have to mute that track and redo the voiceover, or just mute that track and add different music in. So that's just kind of like, where we stand on music. I'm not going to get into this whole thing on where music is going today and the messages that are being put out in it. That is a totally different subject. A lot of it is subjective, a lot of that is your personal beliefs system, so I'm not going to get into that. I just wanted to address why I don't use certain genres of music and why a lot of my videos are containing less and less music unless it really enhances the story or I need to fill something because of the noise or music that was going on in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and end this podcast now because it's gotten a little bit lengthy, and we'll see you in the next video. Hopefully the weather starts changing and we get out of this rainy pattern and we're not going to end up with like last summer. So until then, we'll see you the next time.